Well, I was born in Antigua, a very little small village, um, and went to the village school, passed my 11 plus, and then I went to a school in town. It's called the Princess Margaret School. It was a very new school at that time. We were taught more about England and the Queen, and the Empire than we did about Antigua. I really knew nothing about Antigua. Schools even were named after, British monarchy. And we were taught quite a lot about that. And, I think quite a lot of people wanted to come to England because they felt part of it. You definitely felt there was more opportunity, in England. And you felt that you would be welcomed and, indeed, they would really want you there. Um, Everyone did.
Well, in Antigua, my mother was head teacher. I was fine. They didn't want me to come to England at all. They thought I had gone mad. But I said, yes, I really want to come to England. And so all of the young people who had just finished their school cert came to England.
The adults talked about it as if, it was the most important place to be. And the children, obviously, I was a young child then, and you sort of listened in, and everyone sort of aspire really to come to England.
I came here in October 1961. I'd left school 4 years prior to that. I was a teacher in Antigua. I had to apply to the Antigua committee so that they would interview me, see what all about me, and decide if I was good enough to come.
My dad sort of came over in the late 50s. Yeah, because I was about 5 when he came to England. I don't remember very much about that. Well, my father was skilled. He was a carpenter. So he was skilled. He did skilled work, making furniture. I think he came over by boat, because that was the main way of traveling, at that time.
The day that I was coming to England, my pastor, or we called him pastor, but you called him our priest, he came to the plane, on the plane with me, and sat with me, persuading me not to come to England. And I told him I'd made up my mind and I am going. So he had to get off the plane and go without me.
It was really quite traumatic in a way because I didn't really want to leave. Clearly you're going from somewhere you're happy and to somewhere that you didn't know, and I didn't know what to expect. So I didn't want to go, but I didn't have a choice as my father was here and my mother clearly wanted to come.
Commissioner of Students met me at the airport, and there were 4 of us coming from Antigua. He met us at the airport, Heathrow, then sent us to Luton Dunstable Hospital, where the tutors met us when we got there.
But when we came, we lived in it's a house occupied by, I think, 3 families, and we were on the top floor. So, we were sharing everything, bathroom, all the amenities. And we had one front door, and then you just go to your respective place, either downstairs, in the middle, or upstairs. There were 3 families there. One family, they were Africans, and they live on the middle floor. And another family was English, and they lived on the ground floor, and we lived on the top floor. Everybody lived very amicably. We never fell out or anything like that. We all got on very well. And I used to babysit. The African family had a little boy, and I used to babysit, for the little boy, after school until, their parents came home. So we all got on very well.
I had a friend who went to London to live, and the landlady came into her room one day and said, "You must leave today. Get out of this house. I don't want you here." Where is she going? She had to go back into the nursing home. Nurses' quarters to live. So, otherwise they'll just put your things outside. It was winter, and I really could not believe how cold it was.
Freezing. And I've never experienced cold like that before. So I didn't want to go out at all, really.
Because you hear it's winter, but you don't think of it as being like that because you've never been in winter. But it was very cold. Anyway, my mother had bought me this wonderful coat from someone who was selling it second hand, and I had the coat to put on so that it wasn't so horrible after all.
I remember going with my father to get a winter coat, which was quite an experience because I've never had a coat before. So I found it quite, difficult to choose one. I don't think I did in the end, So my father just bought one and brought that home, so I had that. Going to school in England, that was quite a shock, having things like sago and tapioca, and I've never heard of it, So that was quite new to me.
I said, I cannot understand how is it that they cook roast potato, fried potato, chipped potato, what's happened to all the other food? I thought, there's no rice, there's nothing, what happened?
From spice to bland. That's it. I never had things like, custard and, rice pudding and things like that. To me, rice was savory. I've never realized you could have it bland, as a dessert. So that was the main difference, in that we tend to use spices and herbs quite a lot. And the British, they're doing more now, but certainly when I was growing up, it just didn't happen. I went to a girls' school in Islington. Did fairly well and I didn't want to go to university. I decided to do my nursing training.
I'm state registered nurse, and then in those days, once you become state registered nurse, most of us go off and do our midwifery.
I did my training at the Royal Free Hospital. At that time, it was at King's Cross, before the new hospital in Pond Street in Hampstead. So I did my 3-year training there, and then decided I'd like to be a midwife, and went to Edinburgh to be a midwife. It was quite away from home. I've never been away from my family before. But it was really quite lovely. The Scots were really very welcoming, very friendly. And I often had my Sunday lunch, with families because, I was away from home. They were really very kind.
Over my career, I think I have delivered about 700 or 800 babies. Because in my first 6 months as a student, I delivered 100. We were that busy in Manchester.
Delivering babies, even as a student midwife in 75, up until, my late career. So, I would think that I've managed to deliver a few hundred babies, really.
When I worked in the hospital in Stevenage here, there's only one patient that came in with her husband, and the husband came to me and he said, I do not want any black people looking after my wife. So I said, well, I don't know what you're going to do about this, but what I'm going to say to you is the consultant is black, the doctor is black, here I am in charge of the hospital. The only person that's here is a student nurse. And she cannot look after your wife without one of us. So what are you going to do? Well, he didn't come back to me. When I went off duty the morning, he was still there. The wife hadn't delivered, so.
Most of my working life, I have been a midwife, and and for the last 30 years, midwifery lecturer. I am involved in writing books, so I do write midwifery texts. I'm in the process of writing a chapter now for a midwifery book on complicated or social problems. So I'm doing that at the moment.
I have got 2 children. My daughter, who I sent her to St. Francis in Letchworth. She did quite well there. And finished in university, she's a microbiologist. My son, he went to Cambridge to do his A-levels, finished them, and he is now a consultant in IT.
My daughter is an accountant. So that's her profession. So she didn't really she didn't do nursing or anything, in the medical profession.
So I worked quite hard with the children and my husband. We worked very hard with the homework at night and see that they're all right and it's done properly. So didn't go out dancing, etc. It was time for work, and that was it.
I always sort of see myself as West Indian, and even after all these years here, I still see myself as West Indian, probably more British than I did in the past. It's quite difficult, to explain. But I've lived really not only in England but Scotland. I've lived in the north. My husband was from the north of England, so I spent a lot of years there. Germany, so I've had quite a mix of cultures. Really, it clearly dilutes your own culture. So I feel I fit in really in lots of different cultures. And I think that's probably the best way to live.
I'm British. I'm British. Antigua belongs to England anyway. Or it was. It used to. Yes, I spent 58 years here. Oh dear me.